Welcome to Cultural Catalyst, the podcast that shines a light on the creative visionaries working behind the scenes in arts and entertainment. I'm your host, Allison McNeil, CEO and founder of McNeil Creative Enterprises. With over 20 years of experience advocating for equity and sustainable growth in the arts and entertainment, I've seen firsthand the power of the behind-the-scenes creatives. Here on Cultural Catalyst, the creatives behind the curtain take center stage. Let's celebrate the people who make the magic happen. Let's dive in. Thank you to our sponsor, Ingram Financial Management. Check out more in the show notes. Colleen Jennings-Roggensack. As Vice President for Cultural Affairs at Arizona State University and Executive Director of ASU Gammage, Colleen has redefined what it means to build community through the arts. Under her leadership, ASU Gammage's Connecting Communities mission has brought world-class performances across Arizona, expanding access and amplifying diverse voices. As Arizona's only Tony Awards voter and a recent recipient of a Tony Honors for Excellence in the Theater, Colleen is a national voice in the industry, serving as vice chair of the Broadway League's Board of Governors and shaping arts policy at the highest levels, including appointments from President Bill Clinton. Her influence spans continents, from cultural envoy work in Cuba, China, and the UK, to being named one of Arizona's 48 most intriguing women and one of the most impactful individuals in Arizona's first 100 years. Please join me in welcoming a cultural catalyst in every sense of the word, Colleen Jennings-Roggensack. Welcome to the show, Colleen.
Thank you, Allison. I'm really, really excited and honored to be here, truly.
I'm so honored. And Colleen, listen, before we get into your remarkable body of work, I want to take a moment to speak from the heart. You've been a guiding light for me forever, like you are for many, long before Cultural Catalyst was even a thought. Do you happen to remember when we first met? Or what stands out about that moment?
You know, one of the things that was really exciting for me, Alice, is you had decided to take us all on a new journey. Mm-hmm. And by all of us, I mean women of color. And here was this very young, very smart, very gifted young woman saying, I'm going to have this group and we're going to meet and it's going to be women of color and in the arts. And I said, okay. And you were like, you were never daunted. You were never hesitant. You were right there. And so that sticks in my mind because, as you just said, I got a lot to do all the time. But when someone captures my imagination and I right away look at them and say, this is a leader, I'm going to follow. So that's what I remember about our first gathering.
To the audience listening, to hear Colleen say she's going to follow when so many have followed her leadership, it is incredibly humbling, and I am grateful to know you, to come after you, to have been groomed by you. And I just had to say that before we got into the conversation, to literally give you your flowers, because I've not met anyone like you, and you've mentored so many people over the course of your career, formally and informally. What's your philosophy around identifying and nurturing the next generation of cultural leaders?
One of the things I have always believed is that leadership is horizontal, that it's not vertical. And I believe so many of us were raised in a world where it's vertical. It's like, here's the leader and then everyone else is down here. And I said, no, leadership comes horizontally. So there are so many people in our lives, and whether it's our staff, whether it's groups we've chosen to belong to, like WACA, or whether it is a committee we sit on, leadership is horizontal. So you must always, always be prepared. And I have another saying that if you are, and you've probably heard this because other people have said it, if you are the smartest person in the room, you are in the wrong room. Mm-hmm. So I always go into the room going, what can I learn? And who's here that I can learn from? My mother, Lottie Beatrice Statue Jennings, who is no longer with us, always said, we stand on the shoulders of those who come before us.
That's
We
right.
stand on the shoulders of those who come before us, which meant I stood on somebody's shoulders. One of them was my mother, but there were other women.
Mm-hmm.
You're standing on mine, and there are other women who are standing on yours. So I believe that keeps me excited, engaged, and committed to making sure we have shoulders for people to stand on, and making sure sometimes we get tired. So we need a break. So other shoulders have to step up. And I think those things are very, very, very important. I think it's also important who sits at a table with you says a lot. I'm at this table with you. We are different generations. We're on different geographic sides of the country. We are operating, I'm running a series of theaters and stadiums and arenas, and you are helping people figure out how to do that. So there is this sense that if we all know that at that table are people of multiple generations, of people of varying backgrounds, of people who have seen a lot or seen a little, of people who speak our language, of people who don't, that we always, and artists are so important, that we always have artists at the table. So we will always be able to think our way through any problem, to have an enjoyable, amazing time, but to also figure out how we move forward. One of the things, Oakland University, where I graduated from, they asked, what was so great about going to Oakland University? I said, what was great is I didn't go to get a vocation. You'll say, how did you like study this somewhere? I go, no. What Oakland taught me was how to think. And if someone knows how to think, you can do anything. You just have to think your way through it. To me, that is what higher education is about. It teaches us how to think. Whether it's Oakland or Arizona State University, it teaches us how to think, and it teaches us that nothing is siloed, that there are a multiplicity of things. So I studied 16th century literature, which I still love today. I studied Russian, kinesiology, Chinese cultural history. And I just took things that captivated my curiosity, that I was like, I wonder what that's about, and how do I fit in there? And how does that fit out in the greater world? And I truly believe if people would do that, today I was just like going through some poems and poetry and who's writing what, and thinking about how we use language today. I think what an incredible time if we could all just sit at a table and think, here's the problem. How do we think ourselves through it?
You know what I hear when you talk about this, Colleen? Two overarching categories of curiosity, like staying open, constantly learning, being willing to know that you might not know everything, but also a respect for diverse perspectives and understanding that there's value by having them at the table.
Yes.
And clearly, with a career that spans over 40 years, you have experienced so much. Take us back to the beginning. What
my gosh,
your love for the arts? Like, how did you? I know dance, but tell us what was it?
I will tell you. Both my parents have passed on. Ernest Eugene Jennings and my mother, Lottie Beatrice Stature Jennings,
In peace.
were the kinds of people who said the world is out there, and wherever we are in the world. My dad was in the Air Force, so wherever we are in that world, we belong in that world. But we would like move somewhere. And it wasn't about let's unpack the boxes and get that. My dad would say, okay, I found this thing. I remember we were stationed in South Dakota and we just gotten there, and he said, I found this thing. They have a gopher ranch and this thing called Devil's in Wyoming called Devil's Tower. And so we got in the car. We didn't unpack a box, and we drove, and we said, oh, look, there is a gopher ranch. There's a ranch of gophers. And then my dad drove us to Wyoming, and we went to see Devil's Tower, which is extraordinary. And you think about, you see something at the time and you're with your parents, unless you're going, oh my God, what are we doing now? But I remember when the movie came out, Extraterrestrials, in the piece, Francois Truffaut, though, played a character in it. This guy was like, they'd been kidnapped by aliens, and then they were released, and they didn't understand it. And he was piling mashed potatoes on his plate. and he sculpted the mashed potatoes up. And I turned to my friend and I said, oh, that's Devil's Tower, Wyoming. And he went, you know that. I said, and sure enough, in the story, he ultimately goes there, and all the people who are having that same vision, and they're there to come down, and the spaceship is landing, and they go into the spaceship and take off again. So yeah, it was.
How did you know that that's what you wanted to do, or that was a space for you to do something in? Like,
well, I think you know what you wanted. Your body kind of knows, but you don't know yet. My sister, who's extremely talented, she speaks 7 languages, and she worked for Mitterrand, and she acted for Joe Papp, but she's 3 years younger than I am. And she said, I am an actress and I need a show. And we were at that time stationed in Massachusetts. And I said, okay, I'll put on a show. So I scripted everything out. I put a stage in the backyard. I made posters. I charged people 25 cents, but I said the 25 cents was going to go to fund the books in our library. And we had this little room in our house that my friends made our library, and that people could come and check out our books. So it wouldn't just be for us. And then my sister said, okay, these are the materials. This is the songs you're going to sing. So what you're going to do, this is who will do something with you. And there was one number where the kid didn't show up to do this with my sister, so I had to do it. So I even had to be the understudy and do an understudy role, and then go back to playing the music, making sure everything was set. I was like in the 4th grade, which she was like in kindergarten. And I was like, oh, and it wasn't me like, oh, I want to be on the stage. It was like, no, I'm going to put this together. And that was the first time that presenting came into my life. And I knew how to do that. It never dawned on me that I didn't. And then we collected money and we bought books, and my sister was happy. Yeah. So I think I was like in the 4th grade, and I produced my first show, presented my first show in the 4th grade. And A, it was for my sister, not for myself.
Yeah.
B, it was also the neighborhoods would benefit from it because they could come to our library and check out books for free.
Like, who thinks about that connection at the 4th grade?
In the 4th grade.
Goodness.
But it didn't go away. Mutual ambition. I went to Oakland University, and as a freshman, and I was dancing then, and as a freshman, there was a dance club, but it was run by the seniors. Like, the seniors were in control of the money. The university gave the money. They were in control of the money. So I said to the seniors, again, like, why anyone listens to me is always interesting, but I said, I read this book. I didn't see this artist. I read this book called The Rise and Fall of Modern Dance. The Rise and Fall and Rise Again of Modern Dance. And in it, there's this artist, and her name is Meredith Monk. And I read about Meredith, and I said, we have to bring her here. We have to bring her here. And I remember the seniors thinking, she's a freshman. She's like going to raid the treasury. And I think I wore them out. I think that's another skill set you have to have. You got to keep pushing. And they let me have the money, and we brought Meredith doing education of the girl child. But I had to do a series of things. So I go back to my 4th grade. I know how to do this. She wanted to be in a gym. So I went to the coach and said, could I have this dance group here today? And then they'll perform this night, and then you won't miss a lot of practice. And so he said, okay, Jennings, you can do that. And then I went to see our president, President O'Dowd. And I said, President O'Dowd, I'm surprised I didn't kill him. He's so young. He's like in his 90s now. But I said, I want to bring this artist, but I want you there. Like, this is an important thing. And I'm using not some of the dance money, all of the dance money. And so the president was there, the coach, and I was like seated between the two of them. And then there were like dancers, and I got in a crowd there. Meredith comes out, and she's sitting at a table, and there's wine glasses, and she's playing these wine glasses. And then this physicist who was performing with her came, and he stood on his head. He was kind of bald, but he stood on his head. And then this goat came out, and then the goat pooped on the floor. And the coach looked at me and said, Jennings, you will never get the gym again. And the president looked at me and said, fellas, how much did this cost? But to this day, I am still friends with Meredith. My university clearly has forgiven me because they gave me an award. And it was that curiosity, not even having seen Meredith Monk, but reading about her. Mm-hmm. And I said, we have got to know. And you fast forward years from there. And when I left college, I continued dancing. And Meredith came to Boulder, Colorado to set a large scale work called Mountain Song. And I was in that piece. And I was in that piece with another woman who I later did some dancing with. And so we took that work that Meredith said on a large group of people. It was beautiful. It was the most beautiful thing. And then she and I made our work a duo. So then we like performed at a lot of different places as a duo. And then she drifted away. I think she went to LA and I stayed in Colorado and I turned it into a solo. From freshman year to that moment, from presenting my sister on the stage, that long line came. And I just celebrated Meredith a few weeks ago through Dance Space, celebrated their Rebel Angels. And it was Meredith Monk, Linda Bromberg, and Kevin Beasley. And I just went, Meredith, and I've commissioned Meredith's work. I've had her perform wherever I've been. That curiosity still remains. She's such a brilliant, brilliant artist. So I think that you live in your curiosity, but it's not fleeting. It doesn't become of the moment. It stays with you. Bill T. Jones will say Colleen and Arnie Zane's parents actually live here. And again, Bill is someone whose work I came upon. I wasn't dancing at the time. I was at the Western States Arts Foundation as their director of professional development. And Bill came through Santa Fe. And I met he and Arnie then, and we became friends. And he just said, oh yeah, there's this lady back and we stayed that whole time, and we stayed through some amazing journeys together, some big works we're bringing still here, which is now 30 years old here at Gammage. Well, I was part of the 30-year commissioning 30 years ago at Dartmouth. So these journeys have a way, and as I've said, Bill is a creative capital artist as well, a way of weaving through your life, which is a blessing. Joe Malillo, who's the emeritus producer at BAM, he said, we lead charmed lives. And I said, we do.
Absolutely.
And I think people sometimes forget, or you get caught in the angst, but it is a very charmed life that we lead. And it spans, I'm going to say real quickly, there's a young man in New York, and he's performing on Broadway, Casey Likes, and he was one of our High School Musical Theater Award kids. So we didn't have these programs when I came here. There was nothing here. It was kind of places in a mess. But one of the programs that have since evolved out of that is called High School Musical Theater Awards. And we are part of a larger national program called the Jimmies, sponsored by the Broadway League and the Nederlander Theater. Casey was 17 and we had 29 high schools do a section of their musical on the stage at Gammage. And you should see their faces. They are over the moon because they're on the same stage that Lin-Manuel Miranda performed on. They're on the same stage that Bill T. Jones was on. They're on the same stage Camille Brown choreographed on. So they're doing this, and then we select a best young man and a best young woman, and then they go to New York and compete against, this year was 102. At the time, I think it was 98. And none of our kids have ever won. Like, at what? They've never won. All of them have worked. Casey, at 17, helmed his first Broadway show, Almost Famous, and then he just finished helming Back to the Future, and he's now doing Heathers, which is off Broadway. I think it will transfer on. And so I'll be in New York walking down the street with someone, and I'll hear, Colleen, and it's Casey. And I turn around and go, oh my gosh, it's Casey. And I said, this is Casey. And they go, we know he's starring in that show. And he says, no, you don't know. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for her. And I have to say, hey, it's your own talent, but he will do that. Here's a young man. He will do that. And I think there are all of these people whose lives we are fortunate to intersect with that get to go on and do their dreams. Like somehow we intersect and then everyone kind of goes on and does their dream. And it's
like a dance.
It's a dance. It's a great pas de deux, pas de quatre, the ensemble. It is a dance. Camille Brown will tell you we were sitting by the pool here when she was with Ron Brown's company. And she and I were sitting by the pool at the hotel, and we were sipping and talking. And she said, I want to start a dance company. And I actually forgot this. And she said, yes, Colleen, I'm going to start. And they go, what do you think? I go, you start that dance company. I'll bring them here. Started that dance company, came here. We have remained very dear and very close. And I remember she called me and said, somebody wants me to do this Broadway show. I said, do it. She goes, well, what? I said, do what you do in that show, which was Once Upon This Island. She's since done television. She's done, she got called and said, Matt has asked me to do. I said, do it. So she and I, and like the phone always rings at 2 a.m. My husband goes, is that Camille? Yes, that's Camille. And she is just brilliant. And we were fortunate that our paths crossed and they stayed intertwined and we moved along. She's a genius. I think there are so many amazing people out there, and sometimes they're just doing. Paul Rutger, who's in New York, for all your folks who are listening, and he has this show called Rewind Reconstruction. And he's an incredible visual artist, but he also plays cello. He's a real Renaissance man. He flies planes. He does all sorts of stuff. And you walk into this exhibit and there are all of these suits of KKK, and they're all KKK hoods and ropes, but they're made out of various materials. Some of them are made out of kente cloth. Some of them are made out of camouflage. Some of them. And so he says, yeah, they're invisible, but they're here. So he has a story. And then it's a circle of tall mannequins and these KKK outfits. And in the middle are children and little red and white silk KKK out. And I go, whoa, okay, that's creepy. And he's saying sometimes calling people come to the exhibit and they don't peer in. So they don't know those children are there. But then he showed me this old photograph, 30s, 40s, of someone on the street with their child in a little KKK outfit. And then he does brilliant things, like he has these woven rug pieces. When enslaved people were lynched, and then from 30s to today, postcards were made. And they were something that you sent because they were like picnics. People would bring picnics and watch a lynching. And there was one, a really famous one, where it's a mother and a son and people are over the bridge peering at them, and the mother tried to save her son, and they lynched them both. They had assaulted and lynched them both. But I was like, oh my God, Paul. And because he's a cellist, he's made some of these images, like this carved wood box, like the body of a cello with wooden ripples carved in it. And he said, this is from George Floyd. And people think he said, I can't breathe once or twice. He actually said it 20 times. 20 times. So those ripples are there. And so it's a way of reminding us. It's kind of like, whoa, it's a body of a cello, but that's what that means. Also, he's another genius.
Colleen, I have to say, oh my gosh, as I hear you talk about so many different parts of your life and things and initiatives that you were involved in, I hear that the curiosity led you. I also hear that you had vision when you saw something that could be something, but then you also created opportunity. And the ability to do all three is not necessarily common, right? Like you might have a vision. It would be nice if we could bring this group to the stage.
Yeah.
But not only did you do it, but you continue to do it from a child all the way up to now. And as I hear you talk about the different artists that you've been in contact with, that you've worked with, I am clear that your passion is so prevalent, even now. It's not like, oh, I was passionate that one time. It carries you through and it keeps you connected in doing this dance that makes you revisit people that you've known throughout the years. And I think that one of the other people that we spoke with, it's interesting, both of you said something very similar. He said when he was young, he saw Paris is Burning.
Oh, yes.
And he said that it took him by storm. And then years later, he was able to bring a new interpretation of that to NJPAC. And so I'm hearing you talk about reading the book, bringing it to your classmates, and then not only bringing her to your university at that time, but continuing to work with her throughout the years. That is no small feat. It is like a full circle moment. That is impressive. And I know there's so many more stories. So we just got to move through this. I mean, your influence, and this is the other thing that I want to make sure that our listeners hear. You're in Arizona, but your influence is all over the world. And you'll be talking to someone all the way in, I don't know, DC, and because you're in Arizona, and they're like, oh yeah, Colleen was da-da-da-da. And it's like, what? You were there too? You were the person that is in so many different spaces and still serving the people of Arizona as well. I want to zoom in on what it's like to be in Arizona and what does your actual day-to-day or even week look like? I know no week is the same because there's so many things that you do, but how do you, for the listeners that aren't familiar with what a an executive director of ASU Gammage is. What does that mean? Or vice president of cultural?
I will tell you that I am technically responsible for the artistic, fiscal, and I probably would throw in emotional world of ASU Cultural Affairs, which includes the 3,000-seat ASU Gammage, a building Frank Lloyd Wright built and designed. The last one, Mr. Wright designed. He didn't live to see it completed, so there's that. There is a small 300-seat theater, which is in Scottsdale, called CARE, K-E-R-R, not pronounced CARE, but CARE. And Louise Lincoln CARE was an incredible person and one of Phoenix 100 business leaders, the only woman. And she built this space, which was a salon, if you will, and had people like Charlie Watts, the jazz musician. She had people, Charlie Parker, excuse me. She had people like the great cellist, Isaac Stern. She had, you name it, they were there. And she had these casitas built on this property. And then she had a space which seats 300 people, and not an official stage with like a proscenium, but more like a sunken living room with a stage. And she gifted that to the university along with 2 homes and acreages of land there and up in Flag, and said, continue it going. So this is a space where just a few weeks ago, we had 2 area playwrights, James Garcia and Julie Emperana Garcia, do sections of their new work and invite people to come in and talk about it. But we also have piano residencies. We also have, the governor has a program that's called Awakening, and it is people who are mentally challenged who paint. So we exhibit their work. The Mexican embassy hosts events there. We do weddings. It is an Adobe building, so it means it's a living, breathing. Adobe is living and breathing and has to be taken care of, which is its own issue. You get to learn, you get to know about architecture and the care and feeding of it, but it's an amazing space. But it also includes what is now a 60,000 seat stadium. It was 70,000 seats at the time. We renovated and changed it, a 14,000 seat basketball arena and a 5,000 seat hockey arena. So all of that is in my portfolio. We have about 75 full-time staff. We have like 150 plus part-time people who we call 49%ers. We have over like 160 students who work for us and 600 volunteers.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's a good group. It's a good party group. So, but in addition to performances and all of those, how we've always had, in fact, my home is in the basketball arena. We're in the basketball arena now. We've always done things in those spaces. So we have a program that's called ASU 365. So in those spaces, we do everything from, we had Boots Riley come and we did the Arizona premiere of Sorry to Bother You. And we had like thousands of people on the lawn and blankets, and Boots was so excited. It's like, I can't believe it. This is amazing. He's taking pictures. And then we did a Q&A afterwards. And then we did a private reception with he and the students. And he said, this is like rock star time. I always want to open my shows there. We just had Taylor Mack, and we had Taylor showing his HBO film. And then we had a discussion with Zocalo Public Square, about the last queer frontier is our sports. And so we had a gay NFL player come, and he and Taylor talked, and we did it, streamed it. So that happens. We do a powwow in the spring and here in the basketball arena, and have thousands of people come to that. It's all part of Arizona State University. And our mission is connecting communities. So that comes through ASU Cultural Affairs. And we connect the communities internal to the institution, faculty, staff, and students, and external, whether it's religious groups, whether it's various cultural groups, whether it's age groups, age-specific groups. So we spend a lot of time doing work that is geared and looking in that direction. We did a wonderful program called South No Borders for a really long time. When I first came, the program was over $2 million in debts. My predecessor was up for 28 counts of felony. It was like the program you didn't want to go to. And we're at Dartmouth, and all of my friends are like, I got offered several jobs in New York City and in LA and other places. And they go, why would you go there? Even our own parents go, why would you go there? Why would you take our grandchild there? And at the time we were not celebrating Dr. King's birthday. And I said, well, we're not celebrating it yet. I'm not there. My parents are like, oh my God, that kid. And we got here and I joined a group called Victory Together, which was led by Jerry Colangelo, a basketball player. And thank you, Stevie Wonder, for refusing to play. There were all sorts of things that led to it, but we were the only state where the citizenry voted to celebrate Dr. King. So Dr. King's birthday is a big deal here. So that was going on. So people go, oh, it's so bizarre. I go, it's actually not. It's a place where you showed up tomorrow, Allison, people would say, we are so happy to have you here. Here's 20 things we need you to do. Here's 6 boards we want you to sit on. So it's like, I walked in the door and I chaired the Tempe Convention and Visitors Bureau Board of Directors. It wasn't like we're doing a big show. We're doing SUFS is opening our Broadway Fall. And our governor has said that what she wants to do is celebrate the semi-quintennial of this country, the 250th anniversary. And the first event she will do that with, she'll have 3 flagpole events, is SUFS and the women's right to vote. And so a Broadway show at Gammage is going to be how the state of Arizona says, happy birthday. Happy birthday, us. U.S. So it's one of those places where it doesn't take forever. And I loved New England and I love Dartmouth, but unless you live there for 100 years, it really.
Yeah.
But here you walk in the door and people go, welcome, glad you're here. What do you want to do?
You started to talk about Arizona. I want to talk about it a little bit. So you've worked in Arizona where the state legislature has been largely conservative, but you've had to navigate political relationships while advancing an artistic mission. How did you do that?
One of the things is, again, we wear multiple hats. And I think we just have to think about those hats because a lot of times, like, I'm not the arts lady. I was just in Avondale and the mayor said, hey, we officiated on a swim deck together. And I go, yeah, we did. My child was a swimmer, so I did the swim deck thing. I have a group of mothers that we all meet together called the Mothers Alliance, and we do mother things. And so understanding, and I tell my team that all the time, is you operate in different worlds. Take us into those worlds. So it's not, I'm a member of Rotary 100. And the first few aren't, oh my God, Rotary 100 Republicans, man, why, blah, blah, blah. I came in there like, come and sit with me. I want to ask you something about whatever. So knowing that we belong to those things, I'm an emeritus board member of the Fiesta Bowl. Fiesta Bowl is an important thing here in the Valley. And it's one of the important things in NC2A sports. And people go, what are you doing on the Fiesta Bowl? I said, they asked me. We'd like to have you on the board. I go, why don't I join the board? See how things are. So I think we're not siloed. And I think if anything, we need to learn lessons. When I was at the NEA and we went through what we thought were the height of the culture wars, which turns out the culture wars never ended, we had put ourselves in a little precious box. But that's why we're about connecting communities. So it's just important. Today I went and celebrated Nelson Mandela Day downtown. It was great fun. It was wonderful. And to say that is important as the fact I'm going to have a show loading in and I'll go and greet not just the cast, but I make an effort to speak with our truck drivers. So I go out there and I say, who's the lead truck driver? Generally it's Clark Transfer. And someone will say, oh, I'm the lead truck driver. I said, well, I want to welcome you. This is why I'm, and their eyes always get about this big. And they go, you came out to say hello. And I said, of course, there would be no show if you weren't driving it across the country. So you, my friend, are a big part of this. In fact, when COVID was happening across the country and everybody was free, everyone's like, oh no. And the truck drivers would come in, not with us, but in some places they were not allowed like to come into the theater because of whether they decided to be vaccinated or not. And I said, first of all, nobody's in there. So of course you should come in and use the facilities and do what you needed to do. We had a mask policy and other things, but it shocked them. And when we were able to do parties, because Tuesday night was always our opening night party night, I always made sure they were invited. And they said, nobody ever invites us. And I said, well, I am. And you always will. It's tough with COVID is that we're not doing this. Yeah, it is this openness. And when we get back to parties again, knock wood, which I'm hoping we'll do, and I completely understand because our generation of arts professionals have gone through something previous generations didn't. No one had a COVID. We went through complete shutdown. And then how do we think our way back? How do we think? And I sat on the Broadway League board of directors, and I was the vice chair of the road. And we had 41 task forces to just think about how do we reopen Broadway and the road. And we always thought Broadway would open first, but guess what? It was the road that we opened first because we had greater control over our own futures and where we're going. And you said, oh, people would think Arizona, how do you function there? Well, it was a state where people didn't necessarily wear masks, but we had a rule and a policy. If you're coming to Gammage, you need to have your mask on. It's the rule. And so people went, okay. And my patrons called and said, we knew when you told us we could come back and we could wear masks that it was going to be okay because you said so. I was like, oh God, yeah. And they did, and we did, and we got through it. And we had companies commit, and we had rules, and we said everybody has to test everyone. I would come and meet the company on the stage. It'd be in a big circle. I'd have a mask on. I could spend no more than 15 minutes with them. Then I would leave. But we knew it could happen. We just had to think our way through it. People are open to other ideas and concepts. People are curious. Flamingos love chaos. And so I don't know if you've ever done flamingo yoga. Get on the floor now. There's like, if it's like chaos and something's happening, flamingos will flock to it. I think that's what we are as human beings. We love it. I always tell my team when things go awry, I just say, look, understand, we're in the arts. The arts are messy, and the arts are messy because people are messy.
That's right.
So it's not going to be this, if you sit around thinking, oh, it's going to be perfect. Oh, it's going to be great. It's not going to be perfect. It's going to be, and then how you come to it and how you receive it. But I think we're like flamingos, and we love to be together. Human beings are not meant to be solo. We're just not solo animals. We're animals. We gather together, and being in the theater. Like people say, what's your favorite moment? I said, my favorite moment is we're all in the theater together and the curtain's about to go up and we're going on a journey together. A journey we don't know what's going to happen, but we're going together. And science has proven if you have bodies all together, at some point in time, you all breathe together. Mm-hmm. It just happens. And you breathe together. And we're on this journey together. And nothing ever thrills me more than that moment. That little tiny visceral moment where you go, and then the curtain goes up. It's a very special moment. And one of the things we did here, and I say we, because my team is an amazing team, is we said, you are welcome. We want you here. We want to make you feel welcome from the time you get to the parking lot, or if we're bringing an artist to the schools or to the senior centers or to the National Guard or to, we have 6 military programs. I'm a military brat, so we had none of them. And we do military family first nights. We have 200 military families we bring to shows. We do Operation Date Night so that you and whether it's your partner or you or in the military, you come to Operation Date Night. We do Heroes Night. We honored the MWDs, the military working dogs, and people who handled them. And we had the dog who found bin Laden, and we honored him. And I had people write me and say, I thought patriotism was dead until I came to Heroes Night. Because we have the National Guard come and we sing the Star Spangled Banner and we do the performance, whatever the performance is. But that's our Operation Date Night. So you meet people where people are. And once you know that, then it's like, oh, okay, that's where they are. Not I'm the arbiter of taste and this is that. No, that's right. No. People will stop me in the grocery store. I'll be going, should I get this box of cereal? Is it enough on sale? Someone will go, oh, Gammage lady, my cousin plays the violin. I go, really? Yes. And I said, here's my card. Send me the information. Tell your cousin to write me so I can know. And you may think that like, I had someone who's now since become one of our really wonderful donors, but he said, I found this group, and this was years and years ago, and they're called River Dance. And I went, and he goes, and I'm Irish, and it'll be real. And I go, and he gave me this tape, and it was from Ireland. And I went, well, this looks good. We not only did it in our 3,000 seater, but we were one of the fewer venues that we did it in the basketball arena. So we had thousands of people, watch it. But someone came to me and said, hey, this is my culture. These are my people. I think this is interesting.
Okay, so but you've helped reimagine major arts institutions in the 21st century. How do you hold space for global excellence and grassroots connections, like local connections at the same time?
I think that's a really great question. And I'm on my way to Edinburgh. August is always my Edinburgh time. One of the things is to understand we are global people. Nobody who is in this country can only say, I came from this country. And even my fellow, we have 22 sovereign nations here in Arizona. And even our sovereign nations, we know that bridge, that ice bridge in Alaska, from Russia to Alaska, brought people over. Bridge disappeared, people filtered down here, and that's where our tribal communities came from. But I will say our First Nations people are our First Nations people. And understanding that is I always feel like people are in pursuit of who they are and where they came from. And whether it is Madagascar or Ireland, whether it is Chengdu or Tasmania, people always go, I came from somewhere along the line I came from. And what's that like? And who are those people? We did a piece with Jamin Ogani from Cote d'Ivoire, Africa, and Koto Yamazaki from Tokyo. Well, the company he was with at the time was Fluid Hug Hug. Jamin's company, they did a piece in Canada for the first time called La Côte est morte, The Cock is Dead. And it was a piece which started out with these beautiful Black men from South Africa in suits and briefcases, and there was sand on the floor, and they devolved into primates. And I was like, wait. And my program director, Michael Reed, said, this is really amazing. It's wonderful. And I said, yeah, let me think about how we're going to be doing this one. And what I do is I sit down with people and I have a conversation. So I talk with 100 Black Men, which is a great organization. I talk with a lot of the different sororal and fraternal organizations that are African-American in base and in their basis, whether it's Links or I'm trying to think of some of the other groups we work with. And I said, here's what this show's about. I'm not going to get you. They become monkeys. What do you think? And they were like, what? And we had this conversation. And I said, and we're going to have a conversation before the show happens. We're going to have a conversation afterwards. But I'm telling you before I commit to bringing them here. But what this is about is evolution and the devolution of man and the destruction of the earth. That's what this piece is about. And they were like, oh, well, okay. So we had 100 Black men come with young men, because 100 Black men advise young men. And we just filled the house with people who were up for the discussion. So one of the very first questions that came out of one young man's mouth was like, how could you play monkeys? And the performers, who primarily spoke French, so that we had to have an interpreter, but said, where we are from in Cote d'Ivoire, monkeys are very smart and they're very clever and they're part of our everyday lives. So they're there. They're not something that's separate from us. And then we began to talk about the work. Now, if I just said, oh, I can't bring that. Are you kidding? I can't bring that piece. Then it would never have seen the light of day. And I would never have built a relationship with Jamin, which then led to a relationship with Koto Yamazaki, which then created a piece they did about Rwanda with Hutus and Tutsis and the violence that had occurred, with these two international perspectives creating a work like that, which then we invited the International Relations Committee, the IRC. There are over 22 million displaced people, not people who are coming into the country, however they come into the country, but these are people who are political refugees. It happens, the number one place that they come to in this country is Phoenix. So we didn't even know that. Like, I didn't even know that. So we went and met with them. So then they came to see the work. Then we began a relationship with them, and which we now, it continues on to a number of other works that we've done and donors that we've brought there to meet with the IRC Center, and our donors and other relationships happening. But it was sort of this, saw this work. It's going to be tough to do. How do we do it? My friend John Kalaki was the head of the Walker Center, when it was called out on the carpet for Ron Athey. Ron Athey was a scarification artist, and he cut himself, and then scars appeared, and that was his art form. And that he had HIV. He would dab paper towels and then hang them over the heads of audience members. And of course, needless to say, it blew up. It was, again, at the height of the culture wars, and it went nuts. And I remember talking with John, and John, who then ultimately went on, he's in Vermont, and he became a legislator in Vermont. He said, I always believed in turning over the tables. And I said, John, I agree with you. Art should turn over tables. But you know what our job is? Prepare people for the tables to be turned over and stick around and clean up the mess. That's our job. That's our job. That's not the artist's job. That's our job. So he will always say that. Yeah, Colleen said, you got to prepare them, and then you got to stick around and clean it up. You don't get to go, oh, yep, that's my job. We turned over the table. So there were those kinds of things. Yeah. So I think that that's part of it. And people are curious. People are curious about things. Pina Bausch is an artist we worked with many years ago. She's no longer with us, an incredible choreographer. She was one of the original Green Table folks. And she did it. We commissioned a work. There were 4 universities, UC Cal, UCLA, ourselves, the University of Texas, called No Do. And the people who were most struck with Pina, the relationship here in Arizona with Pina, was our Navajo community. And I introduced Pina to them following the performance. It was an incredibly amazing performance. It took off. She said, Colleen, she smoked all the time, nonstop, even though we had no smoking. Colleen, I think I will go. I'm going with the Navajos. I'm going up to the revision. I said, okay, Pina. So off she went. We went on. People loved the work. It was incredible. For my daughter's 5th birthday, I invited her kindergarten class. I said, but I have to talk to the parents because Pina uses nudity in her work. And so I had all the parents and the kindergartners, and we're talking. And I said, there'll be whales in this and big redwoods. I said, and there'll be times when people have no clothes on. And my little 5-year-old said, no, when they don't have clothes on, it's not nudity, it's art. Ooh. And they all looked at her, and they all looked at her. Oh, she's so your daughter. I go, and yeah. And so her kindergarten class came, and guess what? When they went home, they didn't say, oh yeah, they took their clothes off. They said, oh, there were whales on the stage. There was this, and then this happened. It didn't faze them that their clothes were off. And I tell people, I'd much rather see naked people than violence any day. But it is one of the things we do here is we say, this is what you're going to see. Even when Spring Awakening came, and that was a big, huge Broadway hit, and we had it. And I sat the community down, and we had teachers and sirs and all sorts of folks. And I said, understand, this show closes. In it, a rape occurs. It closes with 1 bare buttocks and 1 bare breast. It opens with 1 bare buttocks and 1 bare breast. I sent people to I sent education leaders, religious leaders to New York to see it. There were 2 shows I did that with. I did it with the Book of Mormon, and then I did it with, I did it with 3. I did it with the Angels in America, and I did it with Spring Awakening. I said, before you get up on the pulpit and condemn me, know what you're condemning me for.
That's right.
And by and large, everybody went, oh, okay. And they came, and even at the time, our president was a different president, and she said, I get hate mail when we win a football game. This happened, it was Angels in America, and it said, I got 3 letters, 2 that said, this is so brave, it's so amazing you're doing it, and 1 that said, what a horrible, nasty, blah, blah, blah. I said, right, because everybody knew. I don't want you to come and be surprised. I want you to know, and I want you to make the decision. And people will call me all the time and say, should I bring my child? I said, we put guides in there. I will talk you through what's going to happen, but that's on you. Now, my 3-year-old saw more theater, in a blink of an eye. I could take her to something, but not everyone is the same. So make your decision.
What I hear you talking about is talking to each other, listening to each other, not making anything a complete surprise, but giving people the opportunity to lean in with some awareness around what they might experience, and creating the dialogue afterwards about what has been experienced. Sometimes people talk about art being solely for entertainment, but sometimes it generates some different emotions that mean dialogue around politics, around health, all kinds of different conversations get get started. And I wonder, I think you're the first person that's representing a presenting organization that's on a college campus. How is that different than maybe a Kennedy Center that stands alone and is not affiliated with the college campus?
I think we have an organization called Major University Presenters. Myself, Ken Fisher, who was at the University of Michigan at the time, and Mike Ross at the University of Illinois, we started it. And we had Jerry Yoshitomi, who was our guru. And we asked Jerry be our guru. And what we wanted to do was to talk specifically about what you've said. Why is it different? Why are our issues different? What are our issues? And how do we deal with that differently? And I think part of it is you're in an academic institution. So you know everything. I sometimes tend to be too cerebral and live in my head. But I think everything should be connected to something that you learn about. And my daughter, she's now grown up. She's now married and she's been in the Netherlands and coming back to finish her PhD. But she said, my parents, we never took a vacation unless we were going to learn something. She's absolutely right. She goes, we never went anywhere unless we were going to learn something. And even if it was like, we went skiing and we're going to learn to ski and then we're going to learn and understand altitude or we're going to learn, she goes, everything is learning. And my husband's an academician. So he works on volcanoes. So we tend to like think that way. And I think if people who are presenters on university campuses know there is an academic component. Now, what I think we have learned over the years is you can do something just because it's fun, just because it's a good time, just because it's Jeffrey Sobel. And we just commissioned our third work with Jeffrey called Food. We commissioned Home, which we did with the Edinburgh International Festival. So it actually did its first premiere in Edinburgh and then came here.
Really quickly, for those that are listening that aren't familiar with what it means to commission something.
Oh, yes. So here's what it means. I ask an artist, I say, Allison, you're my artist. I have 3 questions for you. What do you want? What do I want? And what do we want together? That's how you commission from my perspective. So I say to an artist, I believe in you. Clearly you have a vision. You have something to say. You can't tell me in 10 words or less what you're going to make. I don't know what you're going to make, but what do you want out of it? And then I'm going to tell you what I want out of it. And then we're going to work towards that sweet spot together. What do you want? What do I want? What do we want together? Those 3 questions you pose an artist, they go, oh, we're working with Chris Rivas on a new work. And many people will know him from television and movies, but he did a piece called The Real James Bond is Dominican, which is a true story. Yeah. James Bond was Ian Fleming. He was a Dominican man, a Dominican spy. Wow. And so Chris has been working on this work, and he's been at our Mix Center working with virtual reality and working with AI and doing a piece that we're going to premiere in November. And we just said, what do you want? J.D. Watts, who I just saw in Lights Out, which is a story of Nat King Cole with Dooley Hill, which was at New York Theater Workshop. J.D. came through with Tina. And he had asked Lemon Anderson, who's, again, another one of our artists in residence. He said, I need some time just to think and create. He said, call Colleen. So I gave him a couple of weeks, and he was working on tap dancing and painting and doing some other things. He's really, really brilliant. Christina Wong. I saw Christina Wong, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, and I went, whatever you're doing, we need to be a part of it. We now have probably been with Christina over 15 years. She just finished a 3-year residency with us. I helped her to get into Sarah in the Hermitage. I'm on the International Council for the Hermitage, which is one of the artist residencies. I just presented her at the Kennedy Center to a group of other colleagues, international colleagues, about the work she's done. And she just had finished up with us the food influencer about food deprivation and food deserts on the Navajo Reservation. Christina's amazing. She's just one of those amazing women. So again, it's like meeting someone and saying, you have something to say, and connecting the communities I serve need to hear it. Lemon Anderson came and he worked with our athletes for them to tell their story. He's the poet laureate for Nike. You know that? He's the poet laureate for Nike. So that beautiful commercial on LeBron James being in his hometown, Lemon wrote that. So we had them come and work with our athletes so they could video and do their own stories and figure out, what's what. So I think that it goes back to your initial question, we are a global community. So if everyone understands that from every part of the world, we not only belong, but we're from. so I think for people to understand that they can't say we live in isolation. Now, again, I'm a military brat. So how old was I when I had my first passport? I was 3. It never dawned on me that people didn't have passports. It never dawned on me that people didn't travel. It never dawned on me that people had never been on airplanes before. When my whole life was spent that way, then you think, okay, everyone should do this. So our daughter's an enormous traveler, flies everywhere. She had 2 Fulbrights in Indonesia. So she speaks Bahasa and she speaks Dutch. She's not afraid of the world. And I think that's one thing we have the ability to do as presenters, and we have a responsibility as an academic institution. We can't be afraid of the world. We're the world.
You are the world, just like the song said.
We are the world. We are the world. And so if people know that, then they're like, I think people, if they know their neighbors, Creative Capital we funded some artists. They were called the Ghanaian Think Tank, and they were Ghanaian individuals. And they said their goal was to solve first world problems. So essentially they were a developing nation. And they would say things like, well, people don't know each other and there are segregated neighborhoods. So, well, then people should have dinners in their home. And all those people who cut their grass and clean their rooms and take care of their cars should be at the dinner table with them having discussions. And I was like, well, that's a brilliant idea. That's a brilliant idea that can be done. That can be done.
And you can make it happen.
Yes, can make it happen. And I think that's one of those things with presenters, and particularly presenters in the academy, that we can have those discussions. Liz Lehrman, who I admire greatly, one of the brilliant minds of today, really talks about how you give criticism. It's her critical response theory. I think it's CRT. I think that's what it is. And part of the issues that we face is someone will say, well, I really hated that because blah, 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 as opposed to, I really appreciated this. How did you make that choice? And why not another choice? I don't know if you saw today, Jesse Green just got outed.
No.
5 critics. 5 critics from the Times are gone. And so I've been reading these articles about gone. What does that mean? What's that about? But part of it is James Agee was an old-timey critic from like the 60s, 50s and the 60s. And he talked about work as the work, not as, well, that's the most dreadful thing I've ever seen, or save your money, or quips and quotes, but really, this is what it is. Now let's pull it apart and see, why is there a hole there? But this isn't a hole there. And I think some of our critics have lost their ability to love the work. So there are all these comments on, it's God, he hated my work, or, oh no, he was the only person that really agreed with me, to saying, do you love this work? Frank Delella, who is with New York One, he's a critic and he does MSNBC Morning Joe. He's a theater journalist. So he talks about work as a journalist, not as a critic. And it isn't that he's like, I love everything. It's that let's examine this, and this is the work. And I think that makes it interesting. It engages.
It's dialogue. Yeah.
Yeah. It opens dialogue instead of shutting it down.
That's right.
You know, it's those things. And people have to be open to having those discussions. And the arts are a way of doing that.
I can't remember what it was called, but Lena Waithe was responsible for it. And it was maybe a girlfriend and boyfriend team that went around robbing people. I can't remember. It was very tragic.
Oh, okay.
Very, very nuanced and colorful. And people either liked it or they didn't like it. And I remember being in a conversation about, someone asked me, did you like it? I was like, I don't think that's the point. It's really, did it make me think something? Did it move me in a way that's different than how I was in before I was coming into the space? And I think that piece is what that did. And I think that is art. It's not about good, bad, whether I like, not. It's just, did it spark a dialogue? And I think
absolutely
that ability to be able to be behind that is a blessing and a gift, especially because it sounds like at ASU Gammage, the work, I know you have a Broadway series, but the work that you've been describing today has been, I don't want to call it experimental, but it's not the same.
We call it beyond.
Beyond. Okay.
Okay. Because because everyone knew us for our Broadway work, and everyone we have built that series up to be the strong series it is. So we kept saying, but there's things beyond Broadway. There's things beyond Broadway. And so my very brilliant marketing director, Teresa Dixon, said, well, let's call it Beyond.
There you go. Right?
It's beyond. It's beyond. It's just beyond. And so that's work that is at the core of connecting communities. We have greater elasticity with the work because it's an artist we're actually in hands with. But I would argue that our Broadway work, just as I talked about Suffs, the Broadway work, we just did Life of Pi, which was just extraordinary. And the puppets, which were made by Handspring Puppet Theater, which did Joey, the big horse in War Horse. And they're South Africans. And they were created around the time of apartheid and toured theater throughout South Africa. And I think the really interesting and hard part is to say, I'm just going to let it wash over me. And if we can teach anyone to do that, because I have like amazing patrons, they're just amazing. And they come to everything. Well, Broadway patrons like Singing and Dancing and Chandelier's Falling and people on roller skates and things like that, which is great. And so whenever there's a play like Life of Pi, people go, no, Colleen, you brought one of your plays. And they know I don't do a season without a play. And they will even say to me, we've already planned not to go to the theater that night. And I ran it to a couple who are really very dear people and very supportive. And they said, we planned on leaving Life of Pi. We looked at each other and said, well, this won't take long. And then they stayed. And then they were like, we couldn't believe it. We'd already planned on ditching it and we couldn't. And so that work too, as the connection, I think the beyond work, because we're with the artist, we're one-on-one with the artist, we have a greater elasticity. Marcy Hirschman wrote a book called Tales of the Master Race. And it was about, she is a gay Jewish woman, and it's about what everyday people were doing as the Third Reich came into being, as the Holocaust was becoming. As it's an incredible book. It's an amazing book. It's been translated into 48 different languages and countries. But when I asked her to come to speak and talk about it, I said, you also have to do education programs. And I said, and we're going to send you to an elementary school. Don't worry, you're going to be fine. And she goes, what? And she said, I don't teach elementary school kids. I teach college kids. I said, I get it. But you're the elementary school artist of the day for us. And so she said she went back home. She's at Tufts. So she went back home to Boston, thought about it. And she went and dug out of her trunk her first book that she wrote when she was in the 3rd grade. And she Xeroxed copies of it. And she gave it to everyone. And then she said, we're going to write books today. And afterwards she said to me, that was the most amazing experience. I would never, ever have done that. It's like I'm writing books about the Holocaust and you're sending me to an elementary school and I teach college kids.
Well, what I hear you saying is that you're stretching people's minds, not just the audience, but the artists that you work with too.
Yes.
And even the team that supports you while you do the work. That is a fascinating place to be. What's one misconception people have about the work that you do?
I think that people believe that I'm at an ongoing party all the time. Like they follow me on Instagram going, I love your job. You are at an ongoing party all the time. And I say, understand, it's not a party, it's work. And they go, no, it looks like a party. I go, no. When it's 2 a.m. and I would kind of wish I was home in bed, I'm at a party. But I'm at a party because I care. I'm at a party, I would never leave an artist alone, number one. Or I'm at a party because a show that's not even my show is doing work and has asked me to come to the party. Understand, work is party. And I tell young presenters, I go, when you get that invitation, you can't say, I already saw the show, I'm going home. No. You go backstage to see them. And you thank them. And when you don't, I learned that very, very young. I went to a show when I was a young kid running a small theater. And I thought, I'm exhausted, I'm going home. The next day, I get a call from someone going, did you hate it that much? I said, what? I didn't hate it all. They go, you couldn't come backstage and say hello. I went, okay, we're not doing that again. We are always going to be there saying, I'm here. Understand I'm here. I write a note afterwards saying, this is what I thought was great about it. Or I wrote, because a lot of times producers will call me and say, can you go and see this work and then tell me what you think? And then I make notes and I say, this works. These transitions don't work. I don't know what that is. And why did you do that? And so like people will say, we really want you to see the work. I said, understand, you're going to get my feedback. Whether you use it or not, it's totally up to you.
For younger professionals, especially women of color, I have to ask about the women of color, looking to lead boldly in the field, what wisdom would you pass on about staying rooted and expansive at the same time? Because you've had a delicate balance of both.
Yes. I think it is important that you become committed to a place, an artist, institution, or community. It's one thing to say, I'm going to do this job and I did 2 years, I'm going to hop off. But to make substantive change, you have to stay. You got to prepare them, knock over the tables, clean it up, but you have to stay. You don't have to stay forever, but long enough to get involved in the community. Understand if there is a danger being a university presenter, it's a danger that you never leave the campus. Mm-hmm. It's a danger that you don't think, and it's wonderful being a part of Arizona State University because we're the largest, we're 173,000 students. We serve a lot of communities. We are in service. We are about challenges and solutions, and so this is great. You're at a smaller institution or you're at a private Ivy League institution, you tend to do this. You tend to look inside because everything you need is here. Your audiences are here. Crank open those doors, especially now when people should say, it is so important that I have an educational institution in my community. I can't be even prouder than the fact that that's there. Just as I want them to say, I am so happy Gammage is here. I am so happy 365 is here. I'm so happy CARE is here because it means it's in our community. It's something for all of us. And even if you don't go, I had a friend once tell me when I was at Dartmouth at the Hopkins Center, and he said, I never go to the Hopkins Center. I go, what? He said, well, I'm more of like an outside guy, but every day I wake up going, the Hopkins Center is in my community and I'm proud. I go, okay, I love that. And thank you for that. But also I want you to come a couple of times. That is not like, but you want people to say, I can't have a community without this. It's not a community unless it's there. I would also say for young people who are coming into this field to understand they bring their own vision. They're building on a foundation of something that was there, and that they are not alone, and their partners have to be the communities. They have to be your partners, and they have to be truth tellers. You'll have to tell you the truth. You better have somebody on your team who tells you the truth. It's really, really important.
It's funny you mentioned that on our team at MCE, we always talk about how it's a highly feedback culture where I give regular feedback to the team gives me feedback, and all of it, because we know it's in service to the greater good, whatever it is we're doing for a client or for each other's own development. The way that it's received is with some real reflection because it's coming from a generous place. And so I think that is phenomenal. One last question. It's so hard. You have spent the greater part of our conversation talking about other people and how you support their vision and how you create space for audiences to have dialogue about work that maybe they wouldn't have gone to see on their own, or maybe supporting the team members that you lead and or work with. And then, of course, mentoring others. What's one practice that keeps you grounded and replenished? Like, who pours into you? And how does that work when you're always pouring into others?
People have to have time for themselves. They have to figure out what the time is. I ride a tandem bike with my husband. We are beekeepers, so we have bees. And our kitchen always looks like it's in a factory of putting honey in jars. I have a daughter. Have children. They keep you grounded in such a real way. It's scary. They don't pull any punches. It's like, if it did not, I sent you to college, and now they keep you grounded. So I think that's really important to know and understand. And having grace and giving grace are so important and so hard to do. And sometimes I don't give grace. And sometimes I give too much grace. So kind of learning what that balance is, but it's so important to know. And not everything is going to work out well. And there's a reason for it. And so to look at those, and I tell my team this all the time, if you're going to make a mistake, make a big one. Don't make little teeny tiny mistakes. Nobody learns from little teeny tiny mistakes, and you'll make them again. You make a big mistake and you will never forget it. It will stick with you. You will get it. But know you're going to make them. Know it's going to come.
I remember calling you during a dark time, and I just felt like I don't know what to do. And you reminded me, yeah, you're going to go through this, but you will come out on the other side better for it. And I was like, yeah, right, in the moment. And ultimately, you were right. When you think about legacy, what do you hope people say was the ripple effect because of your work?
I will hope that people will say, "She deepened my curiosity." I don't know if underscore is the correct word, but underscored my passion and left me with the responsibility of the shoulders for those who are coming after me. I would hope that that's what they would say.
What an incredible way to end this episode. How do people get in contact with you?
They at cjr@asu.edu. And please do write me. Add on this other email, mmjcap@asu.edu. And that's Michelle Johnson, who is my executive assistant. Shout out to Michelle. That's the other thing I would tell all young people. Have yourself a great executive assistant. You cannot do this alone. You can never. And I tell people all the time, they're like, "Oh, I'd like to get with you." I said, "Great, call my assistant." And people get ticked. I go, "You don't understand. She keeps my calendar. And if she didn't, my life would be insane." Even my husband calls and goes, "Hey, Michelle, is she free this weekend?" And she just said, "It's just the deal. I can't keep all of that here and then do the things you need to do." That's what I would say. How do you do all these different things? There are things you have to determine that you don't need to control. For me, it's my calendar, scheduling a plane. I have colleagues who schedule their travel. I never schedule my travel. I say, "Michelle, I have to be in London for a week. I have to be in Edinburgh this long. Then I got to come back and I go through New York so I can do things back." And she goes, "Okay, I got it. Here's your choices." I would never spend time scheduling an air flight. I would never. There's so many things that you have to do in your life, stuff that you can say, and someone who does them well. Michelle does them well.
That's
Please,
right.
can you do this well? And she will go, "I read through your emails. These are the fires. These are not." And I go, "Great." That's where my attention goes. She goes, "Yeah." And then no, she goes, "I went through and I threw out a bunch of stuff. And this is stuff I threw out." I go, "Oh, okay." But if you write her, then that people will come through. I did an interview for the American Theater Wing. And there were a group of arts professionals, and they had asked me to come. And I thought, "Who's this for?" And they go, "Oh, we put it out there and it goes whatever." There was a group of university people from somewhere in Europe that watched it and began writing me and saying, "We have questions for you." And I was like, whoa, people are paying attention. I just thought, who in their right mind is sitting here listening to us? And there was someone. And there always is. I tell artists this too. If you go out in that audience and one person is impacted, one person, you have done your job. You have done your job. That's it.
So many people have been impacted by you, Colleen. So many people.
Thank you. Thank you.
Even when I was hiring an assistant, I reached out to Michelle and was like,
Yes.
"Michelle, I want to hire an assistant. Can you tell me what to look for? Because you're amazing. And if I can keep my momentum going the way I want to, I'm going to need great support. What are the questions that I need to ask them?" And she sat there with me and she helped me figure out what to ask. And we talked about it over the years. So
Yes, she's great.
And the impact
and
that you make. Yeah, it happens because you are surrounded by support and by people who believe in the vision that you've set. Listen, Colleen, I have kept you so long.
Allison,
thank you so much.
what a joy.
Colleen. Oh my goodness. For our listeners, can you imagine having a career like Colleen's had and being able to still be just as excited about it? You hear the passion in her voice, her reflective nature, but also the willingness to help others come and be a part of what she's experienced. That is not only a leader, but it is a force. So we thank Colleen for all that she's done in this field. And we ask you to stay tuned to the next episode of Cultural Catalyst. Have a good one. Thank you for tuning in to Cultural Catalyst. If you enjoyed today's episode, make sure to subscribe to the podcast and follow us for more inspiring stories from the world of arts and entertainment. You can find me on social media at MCE Arts and Allison T. McNeil on LinkedIn. Please leave a review and tune in to our next episode for more creatives behind the curtain. See you next time.